Hello and welcome, everyone, to SSUC, to Spiritual Seekers United in Community. This we are, as we welcome you to this live stream for Sunday, January the 10th. It is Sunday. We join you from South Edmonton, grateful to join you here from Treaty 6 land. Both Nancy Steves and I are grateful, too, to be joined by Micah and Carolyn, our musicians, and Brett, our technical whiz in the booth. Welcome to each of you. Beginning last week, we started exploring the wisdom that might come out of the various geographies and landscapes of our experience, the geographies of our heart. Today, let's consider the geography of the desert. May you find what you need in your time with us today. As we light our candle, we appreciate how so many of you have been lighting your candles at home with us. If you, like Joya and Ernie, have a special candle you've been lighting, we invite you to light it with us now. And as you do, we remember the symbol of light, the meaning that light has to connect each of us to the other. Let us see the light in each other and honor our humanity in a peace and in justice and in all that reaches beyond our differences, that's needed now as it's needed always. I invite us to join our hearts together to speak words that will strengthen our courage and our intention to live in ways that we want to live. Let's speak these words. If life is a journey, then with each stride we focus both on where we are and where to place our next step. As we journey through life's different landscapes, may we recognize the wisdom in each one and the echoes of each vista in our hearts. In both companionship and solitude, in dreams of hope and shadows of distress, may we have the grace to appreciate the view with every step. We seek the boldness and strength to live our highest values with every twist along this journey's path.
My eyes are open wide, and on this path Maybe you share my experience of some of these days. Sometimes it's just difficult to open our hearts wide, and we step into the day grumpy and irritated and impatient and short-tempered. That is part of our experience of these pandemic days. Maybe a desert dweller can help us. Maybe Hank can help us. So here's his story. It's entitled "Nobody Hugs a Cactus," and it's written by Carter Goodridge. Hank lived in a pot. The pot sat in a window. The window looked out at the empty desert. It was hot, dry, peaceful, and quiet. Actually, it was just the way Hank liked it. But every now and then, someone would interrupt Hank's peace and quiet. "Hi, Hank," Rosie the tumbleweed called out. "Isn't it a beautiful day?" Hank ignored her. He just wanted to be left alone. "Okay, so long," said Rosie so cheerfully, and she tumbled away. Hank was happy again. But just as he was beginning to relax, "Hello!" shouted a tortoise. "Private property," yelled Hank. "Keep out!" The tortoise was so frightened he hid in his shell. Hank was still yelling at the tortoise when a jackrabbit dashed by. "Hiya, Prickles," she shouted. "My name isn't Prickles," Hank yelled back. "And stay out of my yard." Tumbleweeds, tortoises, jackrabbits. "What's next?" said Hank. A coyote came lopping by. "No dogs allowed," Hank yelled. "I'm not a dog," said the coyote. "And you are as prickly on the inside as you are on the outside." Before Hank could yell back at the coyote, a cowboy strode past. "Keep off the grass," shouted Hank. "What grass?" said the cowboy. "Seems to me somebody needs a hug. Too bad nobody hugs a cactus." "Hi," said the lizard. "Who invited you?" said Hank. "And just in case you're wondering, I don't want a hug." "That's good," said the lizard, "because I don't want to give you one." And then he skithered away. An owl landed on the roof. "If you're looking for a hug," said Hank, "well, I guess I could give you one." "Who, me?" said the owl. "You must be joking." And for the first time, Hank began to feel a little lonely. The next morning, Hank felt more sad on the inside than prickly. Maybe a hug wouldn't be so bad after all. The wind began to pick up. An old cup blew by and stuck to Hank's face. His arms were too short to get it off. "Great," said Hank. After a while, Rosie came bouncing by. "I'll get it off for you, Hank." And she jumped up to knock the cup off Hank's face, and then she tumbled away. Hank didn't have time to thank Rosie. He felt bad about all the other times he'd been so rude to her. So he came up with a plan. Hank decided to grow the very best flower he could and then give it to Rosie as a thank you gift. It took days, but at last it was ready. He couldn't wait for Rosie to pass by again. When at last she finally did come bouncing back, Hank held out the flower. "Look, Rosie," he said, "I grew it just for you." Rosie was so surprised. She jumped up and gave Hank a great big hug. It felt so nice. Hank didn't want to let go. And as things turned out, he couldn't. Rosie and Hank had become stuck together. But they didn't care. After all, there are much worse things than being stuck in a hug. So, who says nobody hugs a cactus?
May my heart be a heart, be a heart of love. May I grow so that I may know more of the ways of love. May my words be the words, be the words of love. May I grow so that from me flows more of the ways of love. May my deeds be the deeds, be the deeds of love. May I grow so that I may show more of the ways of love. May our world be a world, be a world of love. May we grow so that all may know more of the ways of love. In heart, in words, in deeds, in world, more of the ways of love.
It's interesting that we have certain perceptions of the desert. A vast sandy expanse with nothing, or perhaps a cactus or two, a tumbleweed. But desert represents much more to us. It's a land of extremes. Both the stereotypical hot, but also the ultra cold. A desert is any arid place. Anywhere we would consider a landscape of harshness, of sameness. I remember very well 7 weeks spent in a small town in the Tanzanian desert. In our travels in the heat of the day, it was so amazingly hot, but amazingly desolate, even in the center of town. Not an animal, not a person with any experience or wisdom was out walking on the roads. It was as if we were the only ones, and then only because we had a vehicle. But then something happened when the sun approached the horizon. When the heat of the day subsided, more creatures came out, more people began to appear. It took that in-between time of dusk and dawn to bring out people and things and creatures from their places, from their hidey holes and their nests, from the shades of trees, from the hollows of woods in their homes and huts and sheds. That which was always there somehow got revealed when the sun went down. There are realities in the desert. It has long been spoken about as a place of reflection. Why? Maybe because of sensory deprivation. What is there to do but reflect? Maybe because of the seemingly endless vista of nothing but sameness, time and space without distraction. Maybe. But it's also a place of confusion that calls us to reflection. We're trained, we're formed by many landscapes, but wherever we are trained to reach out and hold fast to things, guideposts, touchstones, things that give us rootedness. Maybe it's family, or a stable job, or a sense of belonging to community. Maybe it's a few signs along the road, or the values we hold strongly to. Maybe it's the people we surround ourselves with. They are things we hold on to when we need the most, when we need a sense of direction, or perhaps when the world seems incomprehensible, as it has on our fair share of days. But what happens when those touchstones aren't there? What happens when we find ourselves in a place deprived of those very guideposts that we're accustomed to? In so many situations, we find ourselves in losses, illness, aging, confusion about our identity, transitions in our work, in our relationships, wondering about our significance or our place. In crises, we look around too, and the familiar things aren't helping. In a pandemic, when once we could lean on the closeness of friends and family, we find ourselves in a desert where connection isn't possible in the way that we know. In outbreaks of violence and ideologies that make little sense to us, we find ourselves in a desert where rationality and facts aren't the currency for trade. And we don't know how to respond. In all these places, we find ourselves standing in foreign territory, a desert, a place where it's difficult to point the direction that was so easy in other geographies. Now, confusion can be the compass marker because every direction looks similar. And choosing a route seems all but impossible. Where do you go when it seems like maybe it doesn't matter? These are questions that many of us and many of the young people of our world right now are asking. I want to take a break for a minute and listen to some music. This is from composer Philip Glass, who writes a lot of different styles of music, but in the 70s and 80s was clearly in the genre of music called minimalism or serialism. Many of you know that I do tend to like my share of minimalist music, and maybe that says something about me, I don't know, but this is part of a piano work from 1989 called Metamorphosis, number 1. Let's just have a listen. Perhaps you'll listen to its connection for you to today's geography. Maybe it will mean something, maybe not. This is just a portion of that piece of music. That's about a third of that piece. You kind of get the idea, I suppose. My experience with Philip Glass's music is a reminder of desert land. And I don't mean that as something derogatory to that music, but when I play and listen to that music, I'm driven to contemplate my awareness, not of what's there, but of what isn't. I'm driven to look and listen differently. Because there's very little or no melody, I'm driven to look for other things to point my way in that music, to focus my attention. Sometimes it washes over me, and I don't notice that time has passed. Other times I wonder, how long will this go before it changes? Always I'm driven inward, though. But like the desert, I'm reminded that it's my attention to new things that is eventually revealed. That within the repetition, within the sameness, I'm compelled to notice smaller things, subtle changes. Suddenly, after such a long time of hearing one tonality or one harmony or one rhythm, a new chord that would have seemed ordinary before takes on a new significance, like a breath of air. A new rhythm becomes like a treat, and I see and hear like I didn't before. Edward Abbey speaks of the wonders that he discovered in the desert from his years as a park ranger in southeastern Utah. This is from his book, Desert Solitaire, A Season in the Wilderness. The wind will not stop. Gusts of sand swirl before me, stinging my face. But there is still too much to see and marvel at. The world, very much alive in the bright light and wind, exultant with the fever of spring, the delight of morning. Strolling on, It seems to me that the strangeness and wonder of existence are emphasized here in the desert by the comparative sparsity of the flora and fauna. Life not crowded upon life as in other places, but scattered abroad in spareness and simplicity, with a generous gift of space for each herb and bush and tree, each stem of grass, so that the living organism stands out bold and brave and vivid against the lifeless sand and barren rock. I recognize in his poetic description of the desert a spiritual truth that comes to each of us over time. The desert of our world and of our spiritual road trip is a necessary place. The desert isn't just wasteland, but a transition space. It isn't just a waiting room. Even though we sometimes find ourselves there without having planned it, there is great value in the desert, a place where, as our poet says, life is not crowded upon life as in other places, but scattered in spareness and simplicity. It can be for us a place to notice, because of the sparseness, the things that are really significant. The things that we want to stand out brave and vivid against their backdrop. A time to strip away all the extra stuff, all the things that get in the way, to strip bare and to have one thing front and center to focus on. To have something stand out brave and bold and vivid as those things that are truly most important to us. What a lesson from the desert. We know from the stories of Jesus that he came in and out of wilderness places as a time of reflection, a time of prayer, but also a time of wrestling and struggling against and with the challenges of his own life. At the start of his endeavors as a traveling teacher, he struggles there in the desert. In the midst of people-filled, need-driven, demanding time with those who wouldn't leave him alone, he seeks out new things and a different solitude in the wilderness. And in the closing, dangerous days of his life, he finds both truth and disappointment in the desert. There are things seen in the desert that are not seen elsewhere by the very nature of its sparseness. A new kind of looking happens there then. The desert reminds us that we can feel lost without being lost. It reminds us that we can be alone without being lonely. The desert reminds us that just as there are times for embracing the bigness of this world, the large truths, the obvious milestones and markers, there are just as often times for seeking and embracing the small, the hidden, the unexpected sources of our strength. The desert creates in us sharp vision, attentiveness to the subtleties and the often overlooked. When we seek in our hearts that desert place, when we feel it in our being, that dry, arid, parched place, there is there the gift of the desert, the gift of looking and seeing, the gift of the unexpected. And those gifts dwell within us as one of the geographies of our hearts. May its wisdom dwell in us too, in so many ways. Well, there are many wonderful things about working with brilliant people, but I'll tell you, when you are sitting in the room with a brilliant musician who takes the theme of the day and the examples used 10 minutes ago and creates a beautiful meditation, one can be in awe. Thank you, Micah. Want to share with you a few upcoming moments in the life of our community, things of which you're invited to participate. Today, going deeper, at 11:15, you can join via Zoom, a time of sharing, of conversation, a time to reflect on what you've experienced today. And Tuesday topics, a new series beginning this Tuesday evening at 6:30 Mountain, 7:30 Central, and that is a series of sessions led by those wonderful people at SSUC Saskatoon, and will lead us this Tuesday in a time that explores the spiritual practice of gratitude. Again, note that begins this Tuesday evening, and you're welcome to join via Zoom. Those links for both of those experiences, today and Tuesday, you can find in your e-messenger this week, or if you visit the website there on your screen, you can find links to both of those opportunities. And let me just take a moment to thank everyone who continues to support the work that we do, and an invitation that if you haven't supported us and wish to continue seeing this live stream and seeing all the wonderful things that we're able to do, reaching out into our communities and into our world in ways that are so significant, please consider donating in any of the ways that you see on your screen. We then move into a time of celebrating the sacredness of this life, with our actions and words and thoughts, making it sacred by reflecting what's in our hearts and the values that we live by, reflecting them into the world, and creating in this life a sacredness that is all of ours. Let's sing together.
Beauty is around us, beauty is within
The beauty is always there. The strength is always there. And the light is always there. One of the great gifts of the desert is the night sky, where we can see the stars so clearly in the gift of darkness. What we see determines how we live. And there's no better way in the sparseness and in the spaciousness. There's no better way to see than to see together. This is what it is to be spiritual community. We have to look closely to see when the flame becomes smoke. It is not less there, even as it dissipates into the air. Simply its form is changed. We go into this time, a community of seeing, looking closely for the places of beauty, for the simple kindnesses, for all that is around us, within us, between us, and beyond us. We go in the gift of light, to shine our light into the world. May you be well in this week. May you be safe. And we look forward to that time when we will see you again. Join us this time next week. And in the meantime, take good care of the world. May it be so.